Hey everybody. I actually got specifically asked to chime in with my 2 cents on the NFL Trump slash taking the knee during the anthem aspects. Uh, it's almost like every other argument that I've ever posted is there's 2 sides to all of this. Both sides have a little bit of credibility. But like everything else, it gets blown up. People are taking extreme sides one way or another, and no one's really paying attention to what the other side is kind of bitching about. For starters, we'll go into the teams first, and where I think maybe there might be some of the communication errors or massive fuck ups. All this stuff apparently goes all the way back to Kaepernick, who decided to take a knee basically during the anthem because he saw what he felt was a lot of issues with law enforcement and how they were treating black people. It was essentially like a BLM offshoot. He kind of, depending on who you ask, got exactly what he was looking for. He got the publicity, and then he promptly got fired. He's still not working. And you would figure that that's kind of, I guess, what should have made some of the people who were angry about the whole situation a little bit happier. It's also something that it's funny, but there's a lot of people who can't understand it. They don't understand why you would do something like that or why he would be pleased with his outcome. And the joke is that's kind of what you do. If there's something you believe in and it's going to cost you your job and it's going to cost you millions of dollars to do it, at least you got to hand it to him for standing up for what he believes. So regardless of, I think, what the motivations were behind it or any of that stuff, at least you got to respect the intent and the fact that he used his fame and his platform and his job to put his money where his mouth was. The funny thing is, though, I guess, is that there's now this bizarre blowback coming from both sides. Apparently, Alejandro Villanuevos, I think, or awesome dude, Army Ranger. I think he's a tackle for the Steelers. I actually don't follow football, so it was kind of tough for me to remember some of this stuff. He decided to solo go stand for the anthem, which, again, I respect his decision. He served honorably. It means a great deal to him. But he is now having to apologize because he inadvertently threw some of his team members under the bus by standing for, instead of standing in the locker room, by standing for the national anthem. And it gets into some really weird fucking areas as far as we're now looking at a guy who has to have a press conference because he stood for the anthem. That's kind of fucking backwards, and I understand how his teammates say and do one thing, and by him bucking the herd, there's no solidarity, and that's in a way how he hurt the team. I get that, but holy shit, is that a fucking stretch? Like, I mean, we're getting into some weird areas here where a guy has to explain himself for doing something that everyone else last week thought was required, which was going out and standing for the anthem. He did the exact same thing that Kaepernick did, just going the other direction. He decided to take a stand, put his fame and his possibly money where his mouth was. This isn't really a first for the NFL to do this kind of stuff, and the more I looked into it, the more it was kind of mind-blowing at how strict some of their policies are when it comes to using their international platform to get a personal message across. William Gay, years ago, wore purple cleats to basically raise awareness for domestic violence. That was after his mother was killed in a domestic violence altercation. He got fined for that shit. You can go back a little bit further, and there was actually, I believe, 6 players who wore patriotic style cleats for 9/11 on one of the games that they played. They were spared the fine probably exactly because of some of this politicized hype and shit. And I guess that's actually what it boils down to here is you have the fans are essentially able to decide what they back and what they don't. Kaepernick was a really good example of the fans as a whole didn't really buy or believe or back what he was into, even though a lot of the players do. And he was cast out for it. I have a feeling Alejandro will probably be okay because most Americans, especially the ones that love football, are going to be okay with it. I guess that's also what it bleeds into here is we're talking about what demographic they're pitching to. I hate to say it, but a lot of the BLM stuff is more of a left-leaning ideology, except for in minority communities. And that ain't necessarily who's watching football. It's a lot of white middle-class dudes that are kind of red-blooded, blue-collar American types who are mad enough to actually start boycotting fucking football. That's going to hit the bottom line, and I hate to say it, regardless of what the owners or the players want or any of that stuff, it's what the fans are going to decide that they want, what they want to see and what they want represented, and they're going to walk. And if it turns that that's the case, and you have millions of red-blooded American males that are no longer watching football because they're angry with the players, holy shit, is that going to have an action? So the NFL has kind of been a little bit inconsistent with what they've decided is a problem or what isn't a problem for their players, how they ban people, how they fine people, and how people get fired. At the end of the day, I personally stand for the anthem. I served in the military too. I think others should, just out of respect, and you should kind of leave some of your personal shit out of it. But I also understand how guys like Kaepernick and a few of the others have actually questioned things like the song's origins. Most people don't know that stuff, but Francis Scott Key, who was the penner for the Star Spangled Banner, was a slave owner. He owned people. And to make matters worse, if the song continued into the third verse, which it never does, most historians agree that there's kind of a wild jab there that Francis Scott Key makes about slaves who fight for the British. Holy shit. That's kind of fucking rough, right? Like, if you're forced to stand for a song that was written by a guy who specifically wanted to keep your people, as property. Well, yeah, all right. I'd say at least you have the right to be fucking upset about that. Regardless of how it's demonstrated or regardless of how you move forward with it, that's definitely kind of, something worth considering. All in all, again, it doesn't concern me whether somebody wants to take their personal, stance on something like that and remain seated. The joke of it is a lot of the people who are bitching about this stuff are the same fucking dudes that I have seen in their houses sit on the couch and they don't move. If you got a hand down your pants and you're drinking a beer while watching the national anthem, but you're going to bitch and moan about a dude taking a knee at the game, your priorities might be a little bit fucked up. So I guess in that respect, if less people were hypocrites, maybe this would have a little bit more standing. All that being said, it's a fucking game. I don't know if any of you guys were aware of that, but even though these guys are making millions and millions of dollars a year, it's basically a fucking game. They're dudes who are not really picked necessarily for their wild intellect. They were picked because they were talented and they were really big and strong. That's it. Not smart, just big, strong, fast dudes. So I don't know why people are putting so much fucking credence on what these guys are saying is like, it's fucking biblical truth. They're just football players. That's it. That going out there, the kooky part is you have our president of the fucking United States, leader of the free world, is literally taking time out of his day to fucking tweet and name call these fucking guys who are just playing a fucking sport, because how dare they? Now, meanwhile, this is the same fucking president who is currently in a Twitter flare war with a North Korean madman who happens to have nuclear weapons. And that's fucking crazy enough. It's actually starting to ramp up. North Korea is saying that some of Trump's tweets are now constituting basically a declaration of war. I mean, fucking process that for a moment. Most people are really fucking pissy right now about football players and what they decide to do or not do during the fucking anthem, which again doesn't affect shit. Before people go too far down that fucking path of like, well, you have to fucking any kind of like patriotism that's enforced or is, you know, basically like compulsory, that's no longer fucking patriotism. That's basically the exact opposite of fucking freedom. So there you go. That's it. You're free to do a lot of the dumb shit that people do every fucking day. But when you're the fucking president, you're really gonna fucking chime in on fucking football? Not to mention the fact that like Texas is still partially submerged due to a fucking hurricane. Florida got fucked up due to a hurricane. The West Coast has multiple fucking raging wildfires, which I can't even believe that the news isn't picking that up as much as it has been. But it's bad. And then if Puerto Rico was considered the 51st state, this is kind of Trump's Katrina situation. That place is fucked up with almost no plans going on. Like, we basically all but ignored it. And here we are. That's what he'd rather focus on is guys who are deciding to fucking kneel or stand alone and you know, for the national anthem. That's what he's choosing to fucking pitch. And for those of you out there who are still like, yeah, you know, I like what he's doing, he is focusing directly on you. Because if you love what he's doing, you might be an idiot or distracted really easy. Again, I don't really like anyone on the left, and I'm glad none of those fucking idiots won, but Jesus Christ, we got kind of a bad deal with Trump. I guess that's how he got elected, though, was using Twitter. I mean, soak that in. It was a reality television star who basically nominated himself into the presidency by talking to the dumbest amongst us. So that's basically my 2 cents. I guess to recap, it doesn't fucking matter. It's really dumb shit. Everyone's getting fucking heated about some stuff that really does not, in the grand scheme of things, matter. If we were to maybe start focusing on the fact that we're on the brink of fucking nuclear war, maybe, okay, that's maybe something worth looking into. But what a football player does or doesn't do does not affect you or me or anyone or the country or any of that other shit. So hopefully everyone keeps that in mind when they're watching the game or refusing to watch the game this week. And that's all I got. Have a good one. If you like what I said, be sure to like it and share it. Have a good one.